Today's question: what do ethical dilemmas look like in supporting adults with disabilities in the community? Think back to a time when you first started in the field and you experienced your first ethical dilemma. Who was involved? What was the issue? Fast forward to today, would it still be an issue? What factors have changed? What stayed the same? In this series, I'm going to talk to you about some ethical dilemmas, and I want to be really clear that these are all fictional. Yes, I had great conversations with folks about ethical dilemmas they face, but everything presented today is not based on a specific individual or person. In the ethical decision-making process, step number 1 is identifying who's involved. So for this part of the conversation, I really want to talk about who's involved in your ethical dilemmas. When I asked experienced practitioners about ethical dilemmas they faced, without fail, every single one brought forward an example of supporting somebody with a disability and or their family members. So fantastic. Our vision is really focused on those we serve, and it makes sense that they're the primary focus when we think about ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemmas don't just involve the people that we support. They also extend to our colleagues and coworkers. Ethical dilemmas with colleagues and coworkers sometimes are easier to identify, but they can also be harder to resolve given the unique dynamics. What do we do when we see our colleagues and coworkers struggling? For example, someone might share with you that they've been arrested last weekend. Another might share with you that they have a communicable disease and they provide personal care. Just take a moment. Can you think of a time when a coworker put you in an awkward situation? Or maybe a time that you put a coworker in an awkward situation. In addition to those that we support in our coworkers, we can also run into ethical dilemmas with the agencies that we work for. Organizations are large, complex systems, many factors, and sometimes competing values and resources. Maybe a new safety policy is unfolding. Policies like not leaving somebody unattended in a car are really important for safety and insurance reasons. However, they also violate on some level that individual's right to make choices. I think we can all agree policies are important and need to be followed. They're meant to protect everybody. But at times, policies can also have a negative impact. As a staff member, how do you see your role in advocating for change at policies that negatively influence those that you support or yourself? Can you think of a time in your own agency in the recent past when the agency policy had the opposite of effect that it intended? Last, and perhaps most important, we also have our own moral compass and worldviews. We are beautiful, complex human beings who are called to serve. And with that, we bring our gender, our age, our religious, cultural, socioeconomic, and political views. At times, this may be in conflict with our coworkers or those that we support. For example, if you have strong ideas about substance use, including nicotine and caffeine, you may find yourself having to suspend your values at work. That can be really tough. It can create an ethical dilemma within yourself, not just with other people. So go ahead and take a moment and just consider, is there or has there been a time when there was something within you that didn't align with the work that you were being asked to do? What might an ethical situation look like? So we're going to change the conversation from who's involved to some of the factors. I like to think of it from 2 different ways, obvious and subtle. So here are some obvious ethical dilemmas that most practitioners can identify off the hop. Number 1, Jack wants to see the strippers, but I'm not comfortable with that. Another obvious one, my coworker took a cold and flu tablet and feels a bit woozy, but her shift ends in 2 hours. I'll just cover for her. She needs the money. A third obvious ethical dilemma might look like, I think I missed a medication administration, but I don't want to get in trouble. It's the 3rd time this month. So I think we can all agree that these ones have some obvious indicators that it's an ethical dilemma. I'd like to talk about some of the more subtle ethical dilemmas now that were raised by the folks I chatted with for this project. I'm going to replace the coffee with decaffeinated coffee and see if we can calm things down around here a bit. Maybe you've heard this statement. It's easier for everyone if I drive Jane to her doctor's appointment instead of paying for a cab or figuring out bus schedules. Besides, it's -20 out. I think my coworker might be burning out. He's been miserable for days and yelled at John 3 times last week. So you can see from the obvious to the subtle. You know, there's that niggly feeling that might arise, but really not quite sure. Is this ethical? Is this unethical? You might want to get a different opinion on it. Can you yourself right now see the ethical dilemmas emerging? Or is this an area that you might like some coaching? Before I go on to the next few remarks, I encourage you to take a moment and consider your own work history in the field. Are you a newer staff? Or perhaps you've been around for a while. Thoughts on how many years of experience might be influencing how you see an ethical dilemma? Please don't think ethical dilemmas go away as you get more experience. That's not the case. Instead, experienced staff are encouraged and invited to be more vigilant in their practices. Seeking feedback on ethical dilemmas is essential at any stage of your career. Let's see if I can provide some specific examples of how perceptions of ethics can change over time. First one, boundaries, relationship boundaries, and overhelping. I'm going to use some generalizations here, so please be kind with me. But here's what we know and believe about new staff. They're eager to support. They want to teach. They want to see growth. They're idealists. They want to learn new ideas and they want to apply it. They're fresh. They don't want to see people struggle or fail. They're worried they might get in trouble. They also want to make decisions based on common sense. And if you've been in human services long enough, you know that common sense isn't always the right answer. It's easy to understand how new staff can find themselves in a position of overhelping. So let's talk a little bit about experienced staff. Here's what we know about experienced staff. Sometimes it's easier, quicker, most efficient if they do the tasks themselves instead of trying to teach somebody else how to do it. For example, doing laundry. It's easier and saves time and can save strife and arguments if the staff just do it. Experienced staff often have found a rhythm in their work and they're supporting the individual. And the rhythm can be really helpful and enjoyable. And it also can be a bit of a rut in that the individuals that they're supporting aren't given the opportunity to learn new skills. Sometimes experienced staff can become mother hens and they take over the house. And they do so not with ill intention, they do it with the best of intentions of making sure that there's peace and harmony and ease in the house. They also don't want to see the individuals they support fail. And their strategies for helping also look like overhelping, just different. For folks who are experienced, you know, it's the question that comes to my mind is, how do you keep a professional relationship when you've known somebody and been in their lives, perhaps in their homes for 3 years, for 5 years, for 10 years? Some folks have been working in the same home for 20 years. On one hand, what a joyous, wonderful relationship for everybody involved. And on the other hand, is it in the individual's best interest in terms of learning independence and new skills? So you can see how experienced staff encounter different ethical dilemmas than new staff. So in addition to overhelping and relationships and boundaries, staff development is also an area where there's a difference between new staff and more senior experienced staff. Often we find new staff wanting all the training and they're wanting to roll things out without necessarily having the consent required or the experience or even supervision. So there's an eagerness sometimes that can take hold that can create challenges and ethical dilemmas. And on the flip side, experienced staff may be more reluctant to take training. They might miss the message of the training because they have a feeling that they've heard it before. It's just repackaged, it's same old, but something with new languaging. They might hesitate to roll out initiatives because the current arrangements and interventions are working right now. So why would we introduce change? Oh, the joys. New staff, experienced staff. Beauty of looking back, in hindsight, it's 2020. As an educator and a supervisor, I really want to celebrate that my new staff, my younger and experienced staff, are different than my experienced staff. And as such, they experience different ethical dilemmas, or the same ethical dilemmas, but they experience them differently. And they actually require and need and benefit from different types of coaching and feedback throughout their career. In the beginning of a career, it's prudent to be more conservative, while also being idealistic. And it's also reasonable to want and seek out guidance and direction. More experienced practitioners, the expectation changes a little bit. We encourage them to hold that larger perspective, to see the nuances, to see the subtleties of the ethical dilemmas, not just the obvious pieces. When I'm doing some coaching for more seasoned practitioners, they're not looking for direction. They're looking more for confirmation and active listening. Now that we've completed video 2, you're welcome to take a look and spend some time with the reflection questions that have been generated just for this video.